Hello and welcome to the Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast,
which gives you, the listener, a series of hints and pointers on your journey as a musical artist.
providing you with interviews from those in the music industry, along with our own experiences.
Ben and James shine some light on the many pitfalls and opportunities that being a musician has to offer.
Last week we met up with Gus and Wilson of Winchop, the fantastic two-piece band from the US of A, to talk about how they got started in music, writing musicals, duos versus full band, and forging a partnership. This week it's part 2 with Winchop, where we move on to talk getting signed, long-distance collaboration, their whiskey covers, and interacting with other artists.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 with me, Ben, and him,
James.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Excellent. Still in this heat wave, James.
Yes, it's not quitting.
It's not quitting. If anything, it's got hotter.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
And we're not opening that window because we'll be...
Oh no.
A slew. Slew, is that the right word?
Well, it depends what you're going to say next.
Of outside noise.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, there's generally birds chirping and other...
Metros going by.
Yes.
For our international listeners, the metro is like a tram.
Yes, or a tube.
Or a tube.
Goes both over and underground.
Does go over and underground. Anyway.
Imagine.
I like the metro though.
Yeah, big fan.
Big fan. So this week, as people are probably well aware, part B.
Part B?
Part B? I'll just change it up a little bit. Let's stick with part 2.
Oh yeah, I'd need to think about that.
Of Winchop.
Winchop, our good buddies from the US of A.
That's true. So what are people going to get out of this episode, James?
Well, Ben, with the first half being about their sort of start in their musical lives.
Yes.
Bearing in mind, these chaps are still pretty damn young, certainly compared to us.
Yes.
This gets more into the specifics of how they go about doing what they do. So I quite like the whole background story, figuring out how people got to a particular place.
Mm-hmm.
Because that,
especially with their different type of story.
Yeah, that almost always influences then
what they do next.
What they do and how they go about doing what they do. So yeah, this is into how they
I would say it's their virtual internet life we talk about more. That's kind of where they live as a band.
Yeah, they do. In the internet.
In the internet.
So we know who they are. We know what they're about.
We know where they are.
We do know where they are.
In space and time.
Oh, well, indeed. So let's just find out how they go about doing what they do within their own space and time.
Oh, let's. So actually, one quick question. So have you ever played live together then?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. Other than whiskey covers, I don't think we have.
I mean, like an actual booked gig at a party or a bar or whatever.
Yeah, no, never.
Wow,
nope.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We did a theater piece once, and I forgot all the lines. But that's about as close as we got. Yeah, we wrote a scene about Allen Ginsberg, and then we performed it together. But yeah, nothing.
Okay, so we've got the getting together, record the album, first one, and then Flint Rock, and then the second one a year later in 2015.
Was the process similar for the second one, or?
Yeah, almost identical.
I was still writing songs on the bus on the way.
Yeah, but it was. They were better songs. They were significantly better songs and more thought through. So it was more the process of writing and maybe even performing them was better. I think was much improved. But the process of recording was all the same.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So at what point then, my Winchop timeline might be off a bit, I don't know. At what point around second album into third album did you both start moving apart geographically?
Gus graduated college in North Carolina. Well, he and I never went to college together. So after high school, I went to Syracuse, New York to study architecture. That's where I am now. I have one more year left. And Gus graduated from North Carolina State University last spring.
Okay.
And then he worked in Raleigh, around where he graduated, for like 8 months, and then he moved to San Diego in February. But before all of that, we were pretty much apart all the time, constantly, ever since we graduated boarding school. And moving from second album to third, there's clearly a step up in effort on our parts.
Mm-hmm.
In I think it was June of what was it, like March of 2017, we had a conversation about, do we even want to do Winchop anymore? Do we want to do another album? We both had songs that we thought were the best things we'd ever produced creatively, arguably. And we didn't know if we really wanted to do the same thing again where we recorded bad sounding songs in our basement, because we really believed in these songs more than we had before. And that leads to how we met our producer, which I will let Gus answer because he's the one who actually met him first. Go ahead, Gus.
Thank you, Wilson. So we had a bunch of songs, and we were not sure when we would ever see each other again, because I was about to start working in the real world, and Wilson was in Syracuse, New York, and man, I did not want to work in Syracuse, New York. Nope. So my senior design project, I'm going to cut this one way short. My senior design project was high-tech escape rooms. I don't know if you guys got those over in the...
Yeah. Just kind of come across recently.
Oh, nice. And so we made some high-tech escape rooms, entered it into an arts entrepreneurship competition, and lost to Ryan Chabin of Crimson Moon Records. And this was probably 2 days after Wilson and I were existentially crisising over the future of Winchop. So I walked up to him, introduced myself. I said, hey, this is totally random, but first, congratulations on beating us. And second, I'm in a band with a guy who's in New York, and we're trying to take our music to the next level. What are your rates? And what's that process look like? Because we've been recording in Wilson's basement for the past 3 years. So he took me into his studio and showed me some stuff he was working on. And I said, whoa, this is awesome. And then he told me his rate. It was affordable. I reached out to Wilson. I said, hey, I think I've got the solution, but I have no idea how we're going to make this work.
Yeah. So how did you make it work?
Well, I got a job. I got a job at an architecture firm in Washington, D.C., which is about, like a 6-hour drive between Raleigh and D.C.
That's right. 6 hours.
So this, where this is going. I spent that summer on weekends just leaving right after work on Friday and driving straight to Raleigh and spending the entire weekend hardcore recording all of the parts that are relevant to me for the album. That was probably like 6 weekends. It was one weekend where he actually packed up all his stuff in a van, our producer, and drove to DC, and we recorded in like a cheap hotel room. That was all guitars though.
Right.
So it was a lot of back and forth. Ryan Chabin was amazing in how he wanted to work with us. And I think it's because, we really appreciated and believed in what he was doing, and he was quick to really start believing in what we were doing. And he really believed in the songs we wrote. And so there was a bond that was there that I think really was what made it work. We became very, very close with him, and it was a great process. And so that's how we made that work. But then right after my job in DC, I shipped away to Florence, Italy, for a semester abroad. And so
that's a longer drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not be useful at all in the recording. And we had started Whiskey Covers about the same time we had started recording that summer. So all I could really do was do Whiskey Covers abroad and then upload them to Google Drive, and then Gus would post them because the Wi-Fi in my apartment in Italy was very, very bad. And so that was a really hard thing. But then Gus and Ryan really hardcore buckled in for the next, 4 months finishing that album?
Yeah. I think it was 6 months. Actually.
6 months, right. Yeah.
Right. So that's quite a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, for us, we had a very traditional route of learn songs together, get a band together, get a practice room, practice, put some gigs on, put more gigs on, tour a bit, and then just kind of follow quite a traditional route. I suppose you don't have the practice together part, the gigging together part, the touring part together, which obviously focuses your time on other things, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a second. Is that quite exciting to have like a long distance relationship of getting stuff through through internet or getting through the post, and then having that whole like it's almost like an old fashioned pen friend, isn't it? but through music. I mean, how exciting is it? Is it an exciting process?
It is very exciting, and sometimes it is frustrating. But yeah, overall, it's been an amazing. It's unique, like what you said. We feel like there's something special about our story and the way that we execute things, and the way that we're able to keep executing things like this.
Yeah.
Over super long distance. It's just sort of the expectation. There's no complaining about it. We want to be in a band, and so we're doing it the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, and the end product's good.
I like the album.
Listening to your latest album, it's really good. What's fascinated me really is listening to you both talk. In that, if I just know from our experience, if we hadn't have been constantly practicing together, on a particular song, when we went into the recording studio.
We're burning through money, aren't we?
Horrendous. But you've evolved your processes such that you can just work in such a way that it works.
It works, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you come across anyone else writing in this sort of way?
I think like Postal Service did it.
Postal Service.
Yeah.
What's the big 7-person supergroup?
Have you guys heard of Superorganism?
Yeah, their album just came out recently over here.
Yeah. It's I love them. Like they're super talented, both in music and in visuals and aesthetic. They're really good, well-rounded group, I think. But they that was one of the big ones for us, or for me, at least recently, was just like, well, it's possible. It's so possible. It's more possible now than it ever was before to convince the audience that you're a holistic piece, even if you're not necessarily. And Superorganism now is, because they can afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when they started out, they were not, and I think that's something that it not necessarily. Oh, they did it, we can do it. It's more of a reassurance to we're doing something that isn't unheard of necessarily. It's just something that people don't often associate with a successful band. Like people think that bands always need to be living together to be, tightly knit and super close.
Yeah.
I think that's the great message for anyone listening, particularly if it's someone who's by themselves, they've got lots of great songs, they want to be in the band, but like we've touched on, if you're in an isolated part of the world, like in a small village, and there's not other people that you can just collaborate with, technology today, you can find people, and Winchop are proven it can work.
Yeah. So let's just say, success aside or not aside, have you got any plans to rejoin together? Maybe touring, maybe play a live gig, or do you like the mystique you've created around Winchop?
The mystique is fun. I love the mystique. I think it speaks to creative thinking and problem solving, which I don't want to harp on this too much, but I think it holds people back, but I think what Wilson was saying is that it is the time you can do this stuff. We're not together. We have cross-country whiskey covers. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to record lead guitar and lead vocals first and then have your lead vocalist ship off to Italy. You have to deal with it. The mystique is fun. I think it's inspirational in some ways. A lot of people on specifically our Instagram, they are like, we don't know how you do it. how do you do it? And then we'll direct message them and we'll tell them, here's exactly how we do it.
We're writing a book, actually, how to do internet bands. It's much easier to just...
So come on, we've mentioned the whiskey covers a few times. So for listeners who've not come across these, what are they?
So they are... There's a lot to this. So last summer, my favorite drink is whiskey. Or my favorite alcoholic beverage is whiskey. I drink it a lot. And last summer I was drinking and I was playing guitar, and I've never been the kind of person previous to this. I'd never been the kind of person to record myself performing in my room and just put it on the internet. I was too self-conscious or whatever the reason, but I had never ever done it. And I decided to I played a Beatles cover, Saw Her Standing There, and I just threw it up on my personal Instagram, and it was just a minute long, and it was fun, and then Gus ripped it and made a video where he harmonized on top of it on his personal Instagram. This is before we had a Winchop Instagram at all. We didn't have any band presence on the platform,
right?
And so we were like, oh, this is kind of fun. Why don't we just do this some more? And it became for us. It started as a fun little thing, and it ramped up and ran out of control and became sort of a marketing strategy for us, because we knew, and when we first got onto the whole digital marketing for a band and really started taking ourselves seriously and giving it more effort, we realized that a lot of bands aren't that good at marketing themselves on the internet, and a lot of times, because original music from an indie band has no inherent value. It doesn't really add any value, especially in our case when we can't play live gigs. And so for us, it was a question of, well, how do we provide value in a way that gets people interested in us, but using things that they already are familiar with or that are relatable? And so we developed Whiskey Covers as a weekly video series where we just play songs people know in sort of a unique and fun way that has a repeatable element that people can buy into, the whiskey sip before the cover, and it really became, kind of our image for a second. Might still be that way. And it was just me to begin with, and then it was just Gus, and Gus and I would take turns doing it alone. There were times where we got together and recorded stuff together. When it started gaining popularity, we reached out to local whiskey distilleries in Raleigh about the same weekends we were recording the album last summer. And we played Whiskey Covers in distilleries and filmed it and then gave it to them to use as marketing collateral, because a lot of their content is, oh, buy this whiskey. But now it's, oh, look at this band playing this song, drinking our whiskey. It was more, for us, it was more valuable. And so and then it became a huge thing. And now we do split screen covers that we sync up and have us both playing together from opposite ends of the country. And that has become part of our image too, is that whole long distance relationship that we're making work really well, I think.
So I watched one of those. How difficult is that?
Let me try and think. I'm trying to think from like having not have been doing it for the past year, how difficult. It takes a lot of communication beforehand. We'll send each other videos over email or messenger, and we'll say, here's what I'm thinking for this song. Here you go. What do you think? Can you work with this? Do you want me to harmonize anywhere? Do you want me to change up the cajon? Or if Wilson sends me something, do you want me to change up the guitar, the whatever? And here's the process to have it documented so we can start pointing people towards this podcast instead of sending them a manual of how to do split screen covers.
Yeah, go for it. Right. Here's the manual.
Yeah.
All right, here's the manual. Step 1, decide on the song choice. We are very diligent not to repeat songs by the same artist. Every time it's a different artist. We'll never repeat an artist. Step 2, decide who wants to or needs to record first. So in a lot of cases, Wilson will record first because guitar and vocals is very easy for me to match up cajon, piano, or backing vocals to. But in some cases, I'll need to start because either I'm starting to sing first, or I need to set the tempo on the cajon or the piano or what have you. Third, send a bunch of videos back and forth to each other, determining how it's going to be orchestrated. And then fourth, what you do is I'll put a video, if I'm starting, onto Google Drive. Wilson will then download it, listen to it. Whoever's wearing the headphones and split screen whiskey covers, that's the person who's going second, because they have to listen to the first take. And then sync it up that way. And then fifth, put it into post-production, into a video editing software. We use Adobe Premiere. Put them side by side and let it play. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the 5-step process to a cross-country cover, whiskey or otherwise.
Whiskey or otherwise, yeah.
Easy as that.
Yeah.
So how long does that take then in hours elapsed or effort?
If you add up all the practicing time and then all the Adobe Premiere crashes,
Does like to crash.
Wi-Fi bottlenecks, I would say on my end, I practice a ton because, you got to have it down pat so the other person can sync to it. And since I have a bunch of timing issues, I would say for me, it probably takes 3 hours just on my side. If you include practicing and recording and uploading, probably 3 hours of my time.
Probably same on my end. I'm the one doing the actual compiling of the two tracks together and waiting for Adobe to process it and so yeah, probably about the same for me, 3 hours. And we've started trying to add more things on top of it, like we've tried to start making thumbnails for it and making it more polished. And sometimes those things take longer, but yeah, it's not too bad. And we usually record, like Gus, when we did this past weekend, Gus recorded yesterday and gave it to me, and then I was able to record on top of it right away. And so we have both takes done. So probably after this, I'm going to go put them together, and then we'll be ready to put it up on Monday.
Yeah, okay. That's quite, to be fair, in terms
quite a
of
slick process.
Yeah, producing something that's content that your fans want and are ready to consume, then 3 hours, not too bad. I wouldn't say.
Although content, yeah. So that kind of like nicely leads us into one of the main points, really. But we've kind of covered it a lot. And it is your presence is. You are an online band, as you've said, an internet band, or however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
James, you mentioned that Instagram seems to be the main social.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but Instagram seems to be your go-to social platform. So, firstly, is that right? And if so, why that one above the various other ones that are out there?
That is absolutely correct. It is definitely our go-to. We cater all of our content for Instagram, whether that's, we have to keep this whiskey cover under a minute because that's Instagram's video length.
Yeah.
Or it's, hey, can we produce this piece of content in a square image so it takes up more of the screen? There's a bunch of reasons why we chose Instagram. It's a visually appealing platform. I think it caters well to bands, especially since Wilson has a pretty good handle on image creation and design. It is easy to share, but one of our best kept secrets is that Instagram, and I think, I'm not sure how many other indie bands are doing this, but we have started doing this a lot after the release of the album. Instagram is one of the only platforms except for email that allows you to reach out directly to anybody. Twitter, there's a lot of settings that are deactivated. Facebook isn't really the context for that platform. I've tried to message people through Facebook and no one has replied. I think I reached out to a distillery to do a whiskey cover there while we were recording the album, and they got back to me 2 weeks ago. So it took them a year to respond. Whereas, Instagram provides that direct line of contact, as well as a profile of videos or music that they're into or their thoughts. So we can tailor our messages of saying, hey, would you like to use our song Adolescent Horse in your vlog or in your video or your tutorial or your drone footage? We can start to cater these messages to them in an effort to have them respond and have them use our music. And on the flip side, perhaps this is a vanity metric, but there are processes for growing your follower count organically. Wilson does a lot of that nowadays, where you'll dive into a hashtag, like hashtag DIY music. And then from there, you can just start commenting and liking photos that other people are producing. And if you leave a good enough comment, there's a high likelihood that they'll click on your profile, in this case, our profile, and start examining what we are doing. And we think we're fairly decent for an indie band that is just two of us, neither of which are marketers by trade, and we can't play live. So hopefully they get value out of our profile and all that. There's a lot of reasons that we chose Instagram. There's a bunch of content marketing strategies for anyone listening, I suppose.
So how much of your time do you spend on Instagram doing that sort of just interaction with other users?
Well, it's anywhere up to 2 hours a day. And that's just in it's not necessarily 2 hours straight, but it's 2 hours throughout the day of, okay, I have a couple minutes. Let's go on Instagram and start interacting with people. And it's not just finding new people. It's also commenting on people that you already follow or responding to other people's stories and really building relationships with people, because it's not just about getting a follower. It's about starting a relationship with maybe other bands or other content creators who are of similar influence as you, and sort of playing around with that and making friends, honestly. So
absolutely,
it's a whole and that's sort of where we have another series that we call Certified Tasty Jams that is more related to our relationships with our friends that we've met throughout the process. But yeah, so usually that whole thing is 2 hours a day.
Okay, right. And that's how we met you guys a while back, I think.
That's right,
10 months ago. That's how we met you guys. And, that's how we started doing, we did a whiskey cover recently with a band called Guys on a Bus. And it was a 3-piece whiskey cover where there were 3 different cameras rolling and we had to compile them all together.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
that's interesting though, isn't it? It's a cool thing to do.
I think the point that I liked in that is there's an element of you could just go on and try and get your follower number as big a number as possible, but having 1 million followers that you don't interact with or you don't, there's no relationship there, then it's pointless. Having 10 people that are really true big fans in my view often feels better than just having a arbitrary large number that just happen to have added once upon a time and never really pay any attention to you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. Okay, so have you looked at all at other social platforms? I'm just thinking there, I can totally understand if you're spending 2 hours a day, say, on Instagram, because it's the platform that you're building a lot of your content around, then there's potentially an argument around, you know what, this is the one for us. We're going to focus on doing Instagram. We're going to do Instagram well. Do you have any forays into any of the other social platforms at all, or is it strictly just Instagram's the one for us?
So we have that's a great question, and definitely one that any indie band should consider. I would say that Instagram is hands down the most important as far as making new friends, making connections, showcasing your talents. But we are on other platforms. We're on Facebook because I think everyone should be on Facebook because it has one of the best advertisement platforms. If you have, some money to spare, we have run a few ads, and we're learning. we're still learning. But that's mostly friends and family. Honestly, I think it's almost exclusively friends and family that follow us there. We have a Twitter, which is just kind of, it's I don't think there's really a strategy behind Twitter. I think it's more of just we're having fun, and sometimes people, ask for music suggestions, and we can go in and say, hey, have you heard of this band called Winchop? They're pretty good. We're in other places, but none of them have offered the same ROI as Instagram have. But conversely, maybe that's because we haven't spent enough time there.
Okay,
yeah. But I definitely think there's something in picking one and specialising in it.
Well, yeah, and Instagram does make sense as well because it's visual and audio, isn't it? And that's what you produce.
Yeah.
So
that for me, that's the biggest thing about Instagram is that it's an image-based platform. It's you can't post anything without it being an image.
Yeah.
And that really makes it easy for us to really cater our stuff to that. And it's fun too because it lets us, get in shape and work out our image making muscles, which is nice.
Yeah. You mentioned Tasty Jams, I think, briefly. What's that about?
So we a while ago when we first started trying to form relationships with other bands on Instagram, we got the idea of wanting to showcase them in some manner and sort of highlight them because for us it's like, yeah, we want to be a band that people like, but we really are genuinely interested in bringing up other bands that either we just think they're cool, or we think that their music is awesome, or we just like them a lot, So Gus had this idea of doing a weekly showcase of 4 bands where we put their handle up and we write a little review about the song that we showcase. And we have a Spotify playlist. So the unfortunate thing about it is that we only do it on Spotify. So if the band is not on Spotify, it makes it hard. But we have a Spotify playlist that we put all of these songs on, and then we do a post about it every week. And that's a way for us to, one, show our respect and gratitude for these bands who are working so hard to make amazing music that a lot of people don't get to hear just because it gets lost a lot of times. And also to, boost other people. And so that's what that became. I don't know, Gus, do you have anything else to say about that? That's sort of what it is, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a showcase of indie bands because we now understand how hard it is.
Yeah.
Once we finally pot committed and we said, oh, what? We have to do social media and Wilson's going to be in Italy and this, that, and the other thing. We understand the struggle. And it is difficult when you put out music or you put out content or you put out anything and it doesn't feel like anyone's listening. And if you can, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, right? It's one, we are listening. We love what you do. They're always nice reviews because we believe in the music. We always listen to the song and try and understand where the band is coming from and cater our review to that. So that's always a nice to have. A lot of people share, not a lot, but some of the people share our reviews and treat it like it's an actual review, which is, that's a really nice feeling for us, actually. Yeah. But, just making sure that other people are heard and that, we don't know them personally, but their music is kicking and more people should listen to this because I think one of our theses are rock is not dead. I think a lot of people have that misconception that it's all about rap or pop.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
There's more rock now than ever before. It's just not mainstream. But if you can type indie rock into Spotify, there you go. There's 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 artists that you can jam out to. And here are some that we have certified as Tasty Jams.
Yeah, no, I like it. And fair play, because I totally support. I mean, part of the reason why we started this podcast in the first place was to help interview lots of people to just give some insights into how other people who are doing it out there have gone about doing what they're doing, to just share the information around the music community. And you're sharing some love around the music community as well. And like you say, it's tough enough already for people there who are making music. So anything that everyone can help each other out with, fair play.
And normally at this part of the episode, James, unless you've got anything else, we do a charity or good cause of the week, but I can't think of any much better causes than promoting other people's music. Unless you've got something else you want to talk about, boys.
I think that's a great cause. You know, I think, I don't think that it happens enough.
I'd agree. Like,
it's very easy to chop someone down, isn't it? Because they're good at... I remember when I think I mentioned this before. When James and I first started the band, someone I worked with just in my part-time job when I was at university said, "You won't be very good." I went, "We haven't played a note yet. How do you know how good or bad we'll be?" And all I wanted to do was prove to her that we were going to play a gig. And everything else after that was just the next step. But that was the first thing I wanted to do, was just to prove to her that we could play a note.
Yeah, but no, definitely. Well,
and it
might not have been a good note.
It was an E minor. I know well what it was. That was the first song we wrote.
This was an important moment in your history.
Yeah, the easiest of all the chords, but it still was a note.
Yeah, no, definitely. So definitely supporting everyone else in the music community is a massive thing. So I think we'll start to wrap up there, chaps. What's next for Winchop?
You know, when I love the pause and then the noises. What's next for Winchop? You know, here's the thing, right? We don't know when we'll be able to meet up again. Circumstances have just evolved and changed a whole lot, but we do know that we are going to fulfill the mission of sharing music we love, music we believe in. As far as music production, we're not sure where that's going to go, but has Winchop... At the beginning, Winchop was obviously about Gus and Wilson running around making music, but now I think it has turned into we really do appreciate how much effort and work goes into indie music. So even if our legacy or what's next for Winchop is just sharing music that we believe in, whether it's ours or someone else's, I think that is our future. And maybe we'll make another EP or something, but...
Well, whatever it is, boys, best of luck with it.
Yeah, we'll back it.
Well, thank you very much.
So much, Ben and Jane.
Yeah. But genuinely, it's been great to speak to you both.
Likewise.
It's been great, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, enjoy the rest of your days, and
we'll speak soon.
Yeah,
you two get some sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's late there, right? Yeah.
It's not too bad. Okay then, James, what do you think was the main thing that blew my mind about Winchop?
I know what the main thing is that blew your mind about Winchop.
Go on then.
That they've never played a live gig.
Correctamundo.
Another thing that for many a musician would be like, what? How on earth can I be in a band and not play live? Well, I'll tell you how. Exactly how Winchop have gone about it.
Yep.
They've recorded
3 albums.
3 albums now.
The latest one being with a record company.
Yeah. So, they've been signed to a label, having never played a live gig. The times they are a-changing, as
right, Bobby.
Mr. Zimmerman once said.
But, yes, it blew my mind, because when we started, and I think when we do mention this, my first thing was, we need to play gigs. This is what bands do. They play gigs and a record company will see us. Now, fair enough, there is a passage of time when we started and what Winchop are doing now. But a lot of bands will go, right, we've got 4 or 5 members, we've got our instruments, we're in the practice room, we've got 6 songs, we'll figure out the other 2. Let's just go and play gigs.
Yeah.
Not necessarily needed straight away. Not necessarily needed straight away.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think the fact they're a duo or twosome, so many lyrics they're frightened to use them. Bit of PG and Duncan for you there, James.
Oh my!
That might lend itself nicely to the whole not playing gigs.
Well, there's another element
it might.
The fact that there's just 2 of them plays a part in their setup. If it was 5 of you and you were trying to collaborate across different parts of the world, although they gave the example of a band,
Superorganism,
yes, who did that initially. So again, it's whilst rare, it's definitely not impossible. It is a thing.
Yeah. Definitely works for Winchop. And I think, I know we've said about that it's been a duo, but also I think it lends itself to the type of music they play as well.
I don't know, because if you listen to their album, or all of their back catalogue as it now is,
Look Who's Won is the one that I think you're referring to.
Yeah, but if you just listen to it without knowing anything about them, you wouldn't obviously think that's a duo.
True.
So I don't know. I don't necessarily think their style of music absolutely lends itself to that, but I think other things that they do as a duo, they make the most of what they can do.
I agree.
Keeping on the topic of making the most of things, the way in which they got signed to a label is a good example of that.
Let's approach a record label. Let's approach it. How much are your rates?
Yeah.
What can you do for us?
Well, that was it, right? So Gus went into that conversation very much of we've had 2 efforts at recording ourselves, and we've learnt a lot, and we did a reasonable job, but we know we need to take it to the next level. So opportunity knocked just by chance in terms of where he was, and he thought, right,
you may have won this competition, but
yeah, you've won the battle.
Now can you help us with ours?
However, I don't think he was waging war. The analogy may not work.
I don't think it was going to ever work.
No, but the fact that he was like, he'd started a conversation, and then that led to, like, say, how much are your rates? Right, this sounds like we could actually go and record in there. And then they developed a relationship. And I think he said we had a bond with a producer, and that really made it work. And that made me think of the recent David Wilson interview, where he was saying his work with Arcade Fire, part of the reason that he gets such good end results is that both he and Arcade Fire have an absolute mutual respect for each other, and inbuilt in that is the strong desire and will to do as good a job as possible for each other. And I think that sort of came across when Winchop were describing their interactions with their producer. It was someone who actually really believed in what they were doing, and they could work really collaboratively with this person, and it set everything up for success.
Yeah, and it showed obviously with Wilson's dedication, doing that 6-hour drive every weekend to get to the end result.
That's not a short drive. That's marginally longer than the drive we had to do every summer from Newcastle to the Isle of Wight.
It's about the same.
It is. Oh, there was a big chunk of water in the middle. We obviously didn't drive that part.
No, but we did drive all the way down to Southampton, which is about.
It's not a small trip.
If any on the police force is listening, yes, it's about 6 hours.
Definitely over 6 hours.
Definitely over 6 hours. That is with a stop. Usually to have a little bit of snackage on the way, which I'm sure Gus would have to do as Wilson, would have to do as well.
Might need a wee.
In 6 hours, I'd hope so. This is a camel.
I don't know. I could comfortably go that long.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, it's true. But you're right. The dedication is similar to David Wilson and Arcade Fire, Tim Impala, whoever else he's worked with multiple times. That professionalism, dedication to whatever the end result is, totally works. And I think it's a great thing, because with this podcast, it's getting back to that first part about just having a conversation with someone. With this podcast, we have to go and get guests. So we have to spark up a conversation with someone you've never met to say, can I please talk to Frank Turner, for example, who's on a massive tour. He's always on massive tours. Can I take 15 minutes of his time, please?
Yeah.
It's just like sparking that conversation and having some kind of like, what's the worst they can say?
Well, that's it. And for every time someone either doesn't reply or replies with a no or whatever, you'll get a percentage chunk, which, absolutely, not a problem. And you never know where one conversation is going to lead.
And it's all about setting those goals. So if your goal is, like when we're saying with Stacey, I want to play at a certain city, you might as well talk to 10 bars, clubs, promoters, 20 bars, clubs, promoters, whoever in Liverpool, for example, Manchester. Speak to them.
Or San Diego.
San Diego, yeah. Just speak to them, because that's what you want to get to. You haven't got that gig at the minute. They have a gig. I'll ask about it. Or substitute a promoter for record company. And if you don't want to have a record company, substitute that for radio play. Whatever it might be. Yeah. Sparking up that conversation, but also showing that dedication, commitment. Well, you might get that bit of mutual respect with the promoter in Manchester, for example.
Building relationships. That's what it's all about.
All about, yeah.
About.
And these boys are good at it. And that leads in nicely to the relationships they've been built on the internet with the likes of ourselves. Yeah. Using stuff like Instagram.
They're likeable chaps, and
that does help.
It comes across in the sort of posts that they do online, but also even when they got in touch with us via email. I mean, there was what came across to me in terms of their email communications that yes, they're a band, so they have an interest in you listening to their stuff, but it wasn't just a listen to this, buy this. Or here's a link, listen to this. It was more about, right, here's who we are, here's what we're doing, here's what we'd like to know about, here's how we would like to get involved in what you're doing. It's more of an open, collaborative conversation rather than a one-directional, hello, we're a band, buy our stuff,
listen,
which is just a one-way sort of thing. And you're saying, like, spending a good couple of hours a day on their chosen platform of Instagram, just not just liking the posts of other people, but actually taking the time to have a listen and then leave a meaningful comment. That's the difference right there.
Yeah.
Any number of things. I mean, we've seen the general crack with things like Instagram. You'll post something and then instantly you'll have X amount of likes, which are clearly just have been automated and have instantly done it, or there's an automatic comment that'll go on of a thumbs up or whatever it might be. That is very different to having received a comment from somebody that's clearly paid attention to whatever you're doing and has left some nice feedback on it. Right?
Yeah.
And just the extension of the sort of commitment to the wider music community. And they were talking about their Tasty Jams thing.
Tasty Jams, yeah.
I mean, that's
double mention of jam in the last 2 episodes.
Is there?
Well, yeah, Tasty Jams and Camp Jam, but I'm just trying to change the context of jam.
All right.
I'm a little bit hungry. That's why
I thought you were back to that previous episode when you'd said on your rider how you wanted marmalade.
I did.
Was it mention
that? No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
It was something obscure.
What I said was, in the Adam French episode, that once you make it big, it's just an interview, as he said, an interview that goes well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not instantly the best beetroot and marmalades in the world.
Right. Marmalade. That's a jam.
What?
Marmalade is in the jam family.
I think they're more... Are they? Or not just friends?
No, they're family members.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you learn something on this podcast. Are you sure about that? I'm not just like friends.
Do I need to look this up?
You might have to, because I don't think you know what it might be.
Right, well, let's ask the internet right now.
Is a marmalade a jam? Or is it a marmalade marmalade?
Marmalade a jam?
This is sterling.
Oh, straight away in the auto population, is marmalade a jam or a jelly?
Oh, that's an Americanism.
Oh, man.
You opened up a can of marmalade.
I don't know what I've opened a can of. Marmalade generally refers to a fruit preserve made from the juice and peel of citrus.
Mm-hmm.
Marmaletta means any jam, and marmalade, oh god, this is...
I think we should put links to this.
Yeah. What do you think marmalade is? A jam or a jelly? Right in.
Right, or preserve. I just think I don't know if they're the same family, or I suppose if they're cousins, they would be family. Cousins. But I don't think that they're that close. I think they're just like...
second cousin
they're like really good friends. And they live together in the island Asda. Maybe they don't even get on.
They might not.
We've gone way off topic here. But you're right, Tasty Jams.
But anyway, Winchop have Tasty Jams, which is nothing to do with marmalade, irrespective.
Or jam. That type of jam.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should ask Winchop to do some kind of tasting of jams.
Like one of their whiskey covers videos.
Yeah. That's what they could do. Have some jam before doing a snippet of one of their songs.
Yeah.
Or cover one of the tasty jams of other bands.
Or have some jam before covering a jam song. And then have some marmalade before covering a marmalade song.
Oh my.
I prefer jam to marmalade, the bands, obviously.
There's a new extension to Tasty Jams right there. Collaboration, Ben.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and they could be sponsored by, I can't really think of a jam company right now because I don't eat it very often.
I'll be honest,
Lions?
I don't have jam that often, other than on pancakes. That is where
absolute heathen. Jam on a pancake?
Yeah. So
what?
What's wrong with that?
I just
It doesn't all have to be lemon and sugar.
Well, Nutella, obviously. Jam, butter, white bread.
White bread on a pancake?
No pancake. White bread, butter, jam.
Butter and... Oh, you're not a butter and jam person.
Well, are you a jam and butter person?
The two should not meet.
We've gone... Right. So, one of the big things is that I took away, which we've already mentioned, is social interactions. Like, yeah, that's great. But actually sending a comment might lead... Actually, it might... I'm not going to say might. Will lead to better conversation or better a chance of that person becoming a fan. For example, they could have liked a post of ours and I might have never seen them again. But since that, I've actually listened to their album a few times on iTunes.
It's a good album. We shall put links to Look Who's Won.
Yes.
And
the other two.
Not just that, but there are other offerings as well.
Yeah, of course.
A very good band, and I would encourage everyone to go and check them out. As they've said, mainly on Instagram, where they've taken their chosen platform and put most of their content on there.
Yeah. And the good cause of the week, actually, is a nice little bundle for everything, because Tasty Jams, ACPG podcast, it's all about creating the music community and lifting it up.
Well, indeed. And so normally we get to the point of the episode where we highlight who's coming up next week and all the rest of it.
Two major guests next week, me and you.
Well, we'll not go into it too much now because there will be an episode coming up next week. However, this will be the final episode of Season 1.
Season 1.
Yeah.
And as we'll mention next week, but just to keep you aware, every season won't be 40 episodes long.
Or what if it is?
Who knows?
Who knows? But
tune in next week to find out.
Indeed, we've got lots of things in the pipelines in terms of what will make up Season 2.
And 3.
And 4 and 5 and 6 and who knows. But yeah, more to follow next week.
Yes.
So, as we've said there, next week sees the finale to Season 1 of the podcast, as we reflect on the journey so far and give a little taster of what to expect from Season 2.
We've reached the end of this week's episode of Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast.
Big thank you for tuning in, and remember to stop by iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
While you're there, it would be amazing if you could leave a rating and a review.
All the show notes can be found at www.acpgmusic.com, and if you want to get in touch,
email us your questions, any feedback and any suggestions to info@acpgmusic.com.
That's it for now. Keep supporting upcoming artists,
and we'll catch you next time.